All right, guys, welcome back to Downtown Rams. As always, I'm Alexis Kraft, joined here with my co host, Jake Ellenbogen, and we are coming to you live today, another live episode to recap the Rams' overtime win against the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle, 26-20, in a game that was just very intense all around for many different reasons that we're going to talk about. But the good news is that the Rams were able to pull out the win in overtime in dramatic fashion. Matthew Stafford throwing a touchdown pass to Demarcus Robinson, who makes a one-handed catch in the end zone and seals the W. Jake, I don't know about you, but it felt like that game took years off of my life. Like, it's not that often that I watch a football game and I feel like the physical effects that I was feeling yesterday. I mean, my chest was hurting. I had a tension headache in my head. I felt like my vision was going blurry. I was like, my breath was like increasing, my heart rate was increasing. And that was even before overtime. That was before overtime. Then we get to overtime, and I am like, at that point, I am struggling. I'm watching this game. It's been very intense, and we won, which is what matters. So we'll break down why we got into the W column and what it was that got us to that point. But Jake, before we get into that, you have a message that you
I
would like to
do.
deliver.
Yes, I do. It's from our friends over at Prize Picks. If you use my code JK Bogan, you're going to get $50 instantly. Instantly when you sign up using that code. You just have to play a $5 lineup on the Prize Picks app. When you do that, doesn't matter if you win or you lose, you'll get $50 added to your account, which that can go by quickly. So, obviously always, use that responsibly, but we'll have in the next episode, I'll be able to give you guys some picks. There's no picks I can give you. There's no choices I would make because the Rams just played and they're not going to have anything up there for the Rams and Dolphins already. But next episode we'll have that. So be sure to use promo code JK Bogan to get in on the Prize Picks action. But Alexis, this game was huge. I understand, this is going to be looked at one of two ways. I think this is just how a fan base looks at this. You can either look at this as they should have won by more. They shouldn't have been close. I shouldn't have, lost half of my hair, like all of that, right? Or you can look at it like they got the job done on the road, which is the first time this year that they've won a road game. And they took care of business against a rival that, yeah, you've had really good success against, but a rival nonetheless you're playing in Seattle. That's one of the toughest places to play. All the momentum was carrying towards Seattle. And the cool thing about the touchdown pass is that you can't even say if Seattle kicks the field goal, they would have won because the Rams went for the jugular anyway. They threw the touchdown pass. So I thought there were a lot of good things to take away from this game. One of the biggest takeaways for me is that they did try to run with Kyren Williams. And I expected this. What you guys might not know if you missed my video right before the game announcing that Puka Nacua was going to play. Something that did, right? He was in there for what, a quarter? But that video, and I don't even know if I had a chance to tell you, Alexis, how I was thinking, but closer to the game, I started to wonder. I was like, you know what? This feels like the Lions game. This feels like the Lions game. The Lions, they went into that game. The Rams were like, yeah, we're going to run the football. And then they couldn't run the football because the Lions sold out to stop the run. So everyone on TV, it's nationally televised and everyone's watching it. And they're like, why are the Rams throwing? Why aren't they running the football? It's because the Lions took the run game out of the game. Seattle did the same exact thing. Kyren Williams, 69 yards on 22 carries, looks terrible on a box score. But he had to earn all 69 of those yards. The Seattle Seahawks put 8 and 9 guys in the box. They run blitzed. They made it hard, genuinely hard and difficult for the Rams to actually run their offense. So the Rams, very similarly to the Lions, that game, they had to actually throw the football more. And I thought as we got closer to game time, I was like, man, I'm starting to wonder if they're going to do that. And they did, because this team has been giving up the third most rushing yards in the league. this year. And there was a juicy matchup, and it was almost too good to be true, and it was. And this is why I think the win is so important, because you have a team that fought through adversity. Okay, they had not won on the road this year. They were 1-4 to start the season. They've now won 3 straight. More importantly, they did not have a run game to lean on, because they basically eliminated the run game, right? And Puka Nacua in the beginning of the game gets kicked out. So the Rams kind of had to make do with what they had. Cam Curl leaves the game. They fought through a lot of different things. Rob Havenstein going down towards the end of the game when Seattle was making that late game push to tie the game. I was just really impressed how they got the job done. It's very simple. It's a 60-minute game that a lot of things are going to go south. A lot of things are going to go right for you, but a lot of things are going to go wrong for you. And when you're on the road, those things that go wrong for you typically kill you. They're typically the reason you lose games. The Rams, simply put, did not allow that to happen. They took care of business, and they won an overtime game that I thought they really just learned from the overtime mistakes that they had against the Lions. So it just goes to show you, young team, they're getting better, they're learning more, and man, it was not fun to watch until the end. I will say that. It was not, but big win for the Rams.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, the almost the entire game was just, it was a brutal watch. All right, if we're being honest. Obviously some good moments, that were very exciting. I can think of the Cameron Kinshin's pick six. That was super exciting. And by the way, thank you to everybody who was blowing up my notifications after that, because I did call it on the last episode of DTR when we did our predictions.
You picked Cameron Kinshin's?
I said pick six. I was not specific. Okay. And then I almost got the Jared Verse 2 sacks, but that's all right. I was happy that he at least got the one. But I had forgotten that I'd predicted that for a minute. Like in the moment when I was watching it, that was not what I was thinking at all. And then I opened Twitter, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, like you called it or whatever." I was like, "Wait, you're right." I was like, "I did." So I can't pretend that I remember that in the moment. And definitely was all of you guys who pointed that out to me. So thank you for that. It made me feel good. But yeah, Jake, brutal game at times to watch, particularly the first half. First half was really frustrating. And again, we found ourselves in another situation where it was kind of the defense that was carrying, which was unexpected, because you start to get all of these guys back on offense, right? You get Puka back, you get Cup back, and then before you know it, Puka's been ejected. And then the run game did not look how either one of us thought it was going to look. And like you pointed out earlier, we both were on here doing the preview episode thinking that the Rams were going to have a really successful day on the ground, just simply looking statistically at the Seattle Seahawks defense and what they've done all year long, right? You get a run defense that statistically has not been very good, and then you get Kyren Williams, who has been very good on the ground. No brainer, right? I mean, I think everybody was thinking that. So I do have to give credit to Seattle's defensive line, because they said not today. They knew Kyren Williams was coming. They knew obviously how they've been performing this entire season, and they decided to make the game against the Rams the day that they really committed to stopping the run game, and they did. Like you mentioned, Kyren Williams' stat line does not look entirely great in terms of rushing yards, but he had to really earn every single yard that he got. And let's also point out, he had like 3 really good runs that ended up getting called back because of our offensive line and tight ends had a very poor day with the holding penalties. So we got to take that into account too. Those didn't count. So some of those were frustrating because, we let penalties get in our way. But yeah, I just thought it was surprising to me that the run game struggled so much. I didn't think our offensive line looked great. And now I don't know. Again, I got to give credit to Seattle's defense. I actually thought they played, for all intents and purposes, a good game. They played better than I thought they were going to play. They got penalized a lot. They did commit some penalties, and thankfully most of those went our way.
That played yesterday.
Yeah, there was a lot of penalties, but I think Seattle had a lot of bad calls, which I was thankful for as a Rams fan. But someone in the comments, talking about our tight ends, they want us to touch on the tight ends. So while we're talking about the offense, Jake, um, Hunter Long didn't have a good game. It had a lot of really frustrating moments out of Hunter Long. Colby Parkinson, you and I kind of touched on this in the preview episode, Jake. We were like, is this going to be Colby Parkinson's like revenge game?
Nope.
It was not. Unfortunately, it not to be mean,
Not even a
but it
little
was
bit.
it wasn't even a little bit remotely a revenge game from Colby Parkinson. I thought it was kind of another disappointing outing from him.
He got
Pretty sure,
benched.
yeah, he got benched. Hunter Long came in. Davis Allen was in. Davis Allen doesn't look 100% to me yet. I don't know if anybody picked up on that, but he um, looked like, he was still hurting a little bit. He's been dealing with that back injury and he just seemed to be a step behind, every time we saw him. I do think that he had some unfair throws thrown his way by Matthew Stafford. So I don't think that that was necessarily on Davis Allen. But, somebody pointing out in the comments that he looked slow. Yeah, he didn't look 100%, but, I think Parkinson, yeah, I mean, as Jake said, I think he got benched. So I don't know, Jake, what are your thoughts on the tight end situation? Because some people are asking about it.
Well, Davis Allen outsnapped Colby Parkinson. So I don't feel great about Colby Parkinson right now. I don't.
Yeah.
Um, I would say it feels like the Jared Cook move, except when they signed Jared Cook, I mean, he was the number one tight end, actually had a role in the offense. I know they tried to get Parkinson a role, but I just don't think things are going as well as maybe they hoped. I thought the offensive line was pretty good, though. What we saw in this game is what we were expecting to see out of Brian Flores' Vikings team. Okay. A lot of blitzing. Offensive line only gave up 11 pressures. Stafford's only been sacked once in the last 3 games since the bye week. So I think we are starting to see somewhat of a turning of the corner there. But this is why, when people wonder, why is he so obsessed with getting David Njoku at the deadline? This is why. I do think the Rams have 2 needs on this roster and everything else is totally fine. And by the way, I still think if the Rams stay healthy, they're going to win the Super Bowl regardless if they fill those needs or not. I feel very confident saying that. But if you want to upgrade your roster, Devin Lloyd of the Jacksonville Jaguars is playing on a 2-7 football team. A 2-7 football team that has basically replaced him. Ventrell Miller plays more than he does, right? And then you have David Njoku on the Browns, who's on a 2-year deal that doesn't really fit into the timeline of the Browns, who are also 2-7 and are paying historically the worst contract I've ever seen in professional sports to Deshaun Watson, who is just terrible. And he's out for the year. So I think the Rams should be calling about those guys. I know some people were upset. Sean McVay said it wasn't even that Sean McVay said it. Gary Klein reported that Sean McVay kind of had the, it almost made it like the assumption was that McVay was saying they weren't going to be active at the deadline. I don't know what coach in the right mind would tell people, yeah, we're not going to be trading at the deadline. We're not going to be active. I don't think we can read too much into that. If a move comes up tomorrow and they get a call and they're like, hey, do you want Anthony Richardson for a 5? Do you think the Rams are going to balk at that? Absolutely not. They would make that trade. So yeah, I mean, I think there's a little bit more to it than that, but this is the issue. I'm very much waiting for Tyler Higbee. I think, this whole thing where, the Rams, they don't really care about tight ends. I keep seeing that. Have you seen that, by the way? Have you seen like that kind of rhetoric going around that the Rams don't really care about tight ends? It's
Yes.
kind of interesting to me because I understand wanting a certain player in free agency or, in the trade deadline. And I understand maybe you don't want David Njoku, but let's not lie to ourselves just to make our point better, right? Tyler Higbee, okay? He had 67 targets last year. So, we're going to act like they don't care about tight ends. In 2022, he had 104. In 2021, the year they won the Super Bowl, he had 93. He had 64 in 2020. He had 86 in 2019, 36 in 2018, 44 in 26. But since the 2018 season, when they went to the Super Bowl and played the Patriots, he has had at least 60 targets at tight end, despite the fact there was always a Brandon Cooks, or there was a Cooper Kupp, or there was a Robert Woods, or an Odell Beckham Jr., or a Van Jefferson, or whoever. Despite all those guys, Tyler Higbee has always had at least 60 targets in a season. So let's not sit here and act like they don't throw to tight ends. They are not the Seattle Seahawks. They don't draft 3 tight ends and have them and sit there and never throw to them. Tyler Higbee had 734 receiving yards in 2019, 530 in 2020, 675 in 2021, 620 in 2022, and 495 last year. You could say, okay, yeah, last year, whatever. No, he was targeted against the Giants in week 17 in a must-win game to clinch a playoff berth. He was targeted 7 times against the Giants. He caught 6 of them for 62 yards. We have to stop making this stuff up. They care about the tight ends. They throw to the tight ends, okay? They do need Tyler Higbee back, but if they don't get him back anytime soon, the deadline's tomorrow. So if you can go out and get a David Njoku or an Evan Ingram, by all means, I'm all for it.
Well, also people forget that Sean McVay wanted to trade up for Brock Bowers.
And Dalton Kincaid the year prior. It's like, come on.
You know, it's not necessarily that they don't care about tight ends. I think it's just we haven't had maybe the type of tight end that they keep looking for. And I like David Njoku. That was one of my guys when he was coming out of the draft. I very loved him. I've loved him since then. I love watching him play. I think he would be amazing in this Rams offense. And like you said, it's not like the Browns are not competing. They're not competitive. You know, they traded Amari Cooper. You know, I could definitely see them doing a fire sale at the deadline. Things are just bad in Cleveland right now. So certainly somebody that we could target. Maybe also JOK.
He's on IR though with a neck. So
yeah, that's right.
They can trade him. You can trade an IR player, which I didn't know.
Yeah, but he can't contribute right away anyway. So
yeah.
It's like, why?
So I don't know if they do that.
Well, you know, maybe we trade, you know, for a tight end. I think we're just underserved at that position right now. I just think we are. I do like Davis Allen. I really liked what I saw from him last season. It's just he's not fully healthy, and I don't know that I mean, I think you need somebody else there in that tight end position. And I also think, you know, who's to say?
They're telling us if Hunter Long's out there catching passes, they're telling us they want to use tight ends, but they don't have them. That's what they're telling us.
You also can't, I mean, if we're being realistic, I mean, you can't bank on the fact that Tyler Higbee comes back and is the Tyler Higbee that we need, right?
No,
you know, he had ups and downs already, I mean, when he's been healthy. So I think, you know, getting a guy like Njoku out of Cleveland, I mean, you want to compete, right? You know, so I think it's possible, but we'll see. I think overall this offense, you know, to wrap up our talking points kind of on the offense yesterday, is it was a little frustrating because, again, on paper, you know, getting Kupp and Nakua, and I know that Nakua, you know, didn't play for very long. You know, you have Kyron. Demarcus Robinson played really well. I know obviously the focus is going to be just on overtime, but, you know, he played well, right? The entire game. I thought that he showed that he is the separation receiver aside from Kupp and Nakua, because I think, you know, a lot of us have been tough on those Rams receivers in their absence because we're like, they can't create separation, right? But he showed that he can. And I think that Demarcus Robinson is very clearly the third wide receiver on this team. If anybody, you know, thought otherwise, I think that how he's played the past 2 games have proved it. So
4 touchdowns, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's leading the Rams in touchdowns aside from Kyron Williams. I mean, he's the leading receiver, right? If I'm not mistaken, for the Rams in touchdowns.
In yards, by the way, Tutu Atwell still leading them in receiving. That's just crazy to me. I wish they would use him more. I really do. One thing I want to point out, by the way, Reek Woolen had no respect for Demarcus Robinson. None. if you watch that play, he hardly gave him any cushion, right? He didn't buy into his speed at all, and he ended up blowing right by him. And you could say, oh, yeah, he's in position. No. You guys don't understand. If you think Woolen was in position there, let me just tell you right now, Demarcus Robinson slowed down. He slowed down. He had him beat by 2 steps, at least. So beautiful throw by Stafford. And by the way, I always give credit for one-handed catches that are one-handed catches all the way through. Not just, I caught it like this and then quickly brought in. No, he brought it in like that. Incredible. It made hours of torture that much worth it. And can I just be honest with you? The Rams offense did not play well in this game for the majority of it, but I don't want to take any credit away from Seattle for neutralizing it. What I do want to take credit away from are the officiating, because the refs were terrible on both sides. It was ridiculous. We do not go to football games and pay $400 or whatever a seat to go and watch a flag fest. No one is going to sit there and wish, wow, I wish they threw 27 penalties today instead of 20. It's ridiculous. And, Clay Martin's crew has to be reprimanded for it, because they're absolutely holding up games. That game went into overtime. I get it. But that game ended as soon as the primetime game was starting. That game should not have taken as long as it did. It did because they kept throwing penalty flags. They were throwing penalty flags on the most ridiculous shit I've seen. Like, let these guys play football. And I'm not just talking about the Rams. I mean the Seahawks too. There's a clear and obvious thing when, you're holding a guy back, when he's about to make a sack and you grab him, like the Michael Hoyt play, right? You grab him and he has no chance of making the sack because you held him. Okay. But you could call a hold on every play. If you want to be, picky like that, you're going to ruin the product. And so I just think, I know I'm not the only person. It was almost 4-hour game. It's just, I have to point it out because we have a platform, and I have to say my piece, because, we can say, oh, well, player safety. Well, I mean, Demarcus Robinson got hit dead on in the head, on that play. And where's the player safety there? Now, I don't know what Love is supposed to do there. I don't. Obviously don't hit him head to head, but I feel like they were going to throw that flag even if he hit him in the sternum. That's just a tough play, but when he hits him head to head, and I saw that after the fact, I was confused why they picked that flag up. I just think right now officiating, it has not gotten better. It's only gotten worse. We're in the age of 5-second clips on Twitter. Everyone's seeing how bad it is. The problem is they're not held to any sort of accountability whatsoever. And so I'm not going to say that games are won and lost because of the officiating. I think they are a part of it sometimes, and sometimes they're not. But I don't think you lose a game because of the officiating. You're the one that created that situation by being in that close game at that moment. But this is more so the pace of play. You can't have 4-hour football games just because you want to talk all day. Clay Martin just kept throwing flags. They threw like 27 flags. It's just, at what point is it too much? I think we've already reached that point. But I would just like to see, the teams prove who deserves to win based on their play on the field and less about the laundry.
Yeah. I just thought, I thought it was bad all around yesterday. And I'm not typically somebody, I think it's pointless, honestly, talking about bad calls and the referees and whatever. It doesn't change anything, so I typically don't do it. But I did think that it was poor on both sides, and thankfully, the game, ended up going the Rams' way. But I do want to touch on in the comments, because I asked, what was in closing talking about the offense, because I do want to talk about the defense if there was any last things that anybody wanted to touch on. Somebody asked us what our ideal offensive line is for Monday. And Jake, I'll let you answer this first, because I feel like the reporting coming out about who is going to be healthy is a little murky. I don't know if you have an opinion on that. Like, I'm not sure. Well, you go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we don't really know exactly what's going to go on. I'm never listening to this team again when they say, yeah, this guy might play.
Mm-mm.
I'll never forget coming out of the bye, Sean McVay said, yeah, Jordan Whittington, he got banged up on the shoulder. It's not going to affect his game day status. He's missed 2 full games. He barely played in the Raiders game. I'm not doing it anymore, Alexis. I am not doing it anymore. So, with that said, I'm not going to assume Noteboom plays. I'm not going to assume anybody plays. I will say this. Alec Jackson, I feel good about at left tackle. I think left guard, just from them mentioning these guys, I do kind of lean towards they might play. So let's just say everyone's healthy except for Rob Havenstein. Okay. Because we already know he's out. My offensive line would be Alec Jackson at left tackle, left guard Steve Avila, center Jonah Jackson, Dotson at right guard. And I'm going to surprise some people here. I'm going to take Warren McClendon Jr. at right tackle. I was really impressed with the way he just got thrown into the fire and played at a very high level in a high leverage situation in the fourth quarter against the Seattle defense that I actually just did a project on this. Seattle has the second most pressures in the NFL. So that's a pretty good barometer about where he is and what you're asking of him. So McClendon Jr., he got picked on at left tackle. I think he's more of a natural right tackle. I really liked what I saw. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but Seattle has 182 pressures this year, which is second in the league, only behind Denver at 192. They get to the quarterback. They do. And, Warren McClendon Jr. did a really nice job of, not imploding, because I can tell you right now, when Havenstein came out, all the momentum is starting to point towards the Seattle Seahawks way. They're at home. It wasn't looking good. But McClendon, I thought, stepped up in a big way and gave the Rams a chance. And that's all you could ask for.
I'm in agreement. Because I do not trust. I feel like I think every coach in the NFL lies. I do think the Rams are particularly bad. I do
Oh,
think that
it's
the
awful.
Rams are particularly bad compared to the other 31 teams about being honest about player injuries. So I could say right now that we'll just have the same offensive line we had against Seattle. I truthfully could see that. I don't.
I could see
It's
that.
minus Haven, minus Rob, but I'm trying to think like a little bit.
That was Bo
Well,
Limmer's best game, by the way.
it was.
So I feel
It was.
bad
And
benching him after
well,
that.
it's frustrating because I want to be like, we're going to have everybody back, right? But I think it would be a little disingenuous. It just, I don't know. I don't trust anything. And it's such a lame answer because people also tweet me this question. And I'm just kind of like, I'll believe that somebody's playing when they're on the field when the game starts. I just don't believe it because I've been burned too many times with the Rams. But it is what it is. I mean,
Yeah.
I think, um, well, we'll talk a little bit more about it when we recap the the game. The last thing people looks like want us to talk about offensively is the Puka Nakua ejection. I will say this because I don't really feel it's gonna sound weird, but I'm not like super intensely feel strong about it. Do I agree with it? No, I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think. Do I understand it? Yes, I do understand it. I watched it. I saw what it looked like. I could see what it looked like in the moment. Um, do I think it was a weak punch? Do I think it was a punch? I think it's murky. Listen, I watched the tape. It's out there. It looks like he hit him. Do I think it was weak? Yes. Do I think it was, just insanely malicious? No, I don't. But I know what the rules are in the NFL. That's the rule. I also know that 9 times out of 10, they always get the guy who retaliates. I've seen it on the Rams. I've seen it in other NFL games. it is what it is. It's like life. It's not fair. It's like when a car speeds by a cop and then you're doing the same speed that the car in front of you is doing, and then you get pulled over because that's what the cop saw. It sucks, but it happens. So, I think two things can be true. I think it was ridiculous that he got ejected, but I also think you have to be smarter in that situation. So, I think at the end of the day, like we can all complain about it and be like, well, other players did this that was so much more egregious and they didn't get thrown out. Yes, I agree with you. I think it's ridiculous, but he happened to get caught doing something that I don't really think he meant to do. So, that's my thought on the situation. That's why I wasn't like on Twitter complaining about it, for the entire game. I think it's one of those learning situations. I think it's a shame because I think Dodson totally initiated it. Um, so that's my thought. I mean, anybody who follows me, that's pretty much what I said yesterday. Do I agree with it? No. Was I surprised? No. I think both things can be true. I don't know if you want to say anything about it.
Yeah, I mean, in the heat of the moment, I was really pissed. Now I don't care. They won the game, whatever. But I just think Clay Martin's, referee crew was just that terrible. That's an egregious decision that I'm sure the NFL didn't appreciate. Yeah, that's a genius idea. How about in a huge prime time, 4 p.m. Eastern time slot? Let's have Puka Nacua, who's a superstar. Let's have him take it out of that game. A rivalry game that is being broadcasted on Fox. It's just stupid. There's no way the NFL wanted that. That's what bothers me, is that you just have these numbskull officials. Like that one guy, it happened 2 years ago or whatever, and I forget exactly what happened, but it's like, oh, he made contact with an official. So he automatic.
That was the Bears game.
That was terrible. He didn't even know he was there. Yeah. You can't throw a guy out of the game like that so willy-nilly. That's right. A big issue in baseball, too. Umpire's soft as shit. Somebody says he didn't like the call, and so he acts like, his grandmother was just, like, threatened or something and throws the guy out of the game. You, umpires, officials, you are not the entertainment. It just goes back to what I was saying. You're not the entertainment. Puka Nacua didn't do anything that was that egregious. Would argue that the bigger thing was actually Dodson initiating that. But neither player should have gotten a penalty, and they shouldn't have gotten thrown out of the game. That's football. And the whole punch thing, no. When you eject a guy out, you eject him out when it's Cortland Finnegan versus Andre Johnson. Show them that. But you can't, because today's culture's soft. And Clay Martin probably would have had a heart attack if he saw that. He wouldn't have thrown him out of the game. He probably would have called the police. That's the problem. These officials are soft. That's what it comes down to. If you're throwing a guy out for that, that's ridiculous. So am I angry about it? No. But I think it's ridiculous that we have a superstar in Puka Nacua in a huge, huge rivalry game on the road that everybody's watching, because everyone has access to the games now because they just watch Red Zone if they're not watching the actual game. And you're going to take Puka Nacua out of there? How does that help the NFL? It doesn't. It's awful. And there's already an issue in the NFL when you have defensive players, they're just diving into these skill position players' knees. Let's not forget why this sport continues to grow on the level it does. It's because of fantasy football and betting. You start doing that shit and people are going to complain. People are going to have issues with it. Puka Nacua has people who don't care about the Rams or the Seahawks tuning into this game to watch Puka Nacua. You kick him out of the game. How does that help the sport? How does that help the product? It doesn't. That's my issue with it. It's not even a football thing. It's business. And I know for a fact the NFL was not happy with that at all. There's no way that they were okay with that.
It'll be interesting to see, because usually when something like that is warranted, there's like a fine. So if Puka Nacua is not fined, for example, because the NFL looks for any excuse, right? I mean, you could breathe the wrong way, they're going to fine a player.
Oh, yeah.
If he's not fined, that will be an indication of what you're saying. And I've been thinking about that too, is it's like, let's see what they really thought about that. Because if they're in agreement, they'll fine him. And if they don't fine him, then we're going to know where they stand.
They care more about a little slap because it wasn't even a close fist. It was a slap, basically. They care more about a slap on the helmet than they do about like Brandon Ayuk's season being ended on a bullshit hit, or Tyler Higbee, who's still recovering from a hit that he suffered in January, or TJ Hawkinson, who just came back from said hit. That's my issue. It's just like, it's the same thing with just everything in the world right now. Our priorities are never straight. The NFL never has their priorities straight.
Well, it's inconsistent, and it's, some of these hits. I mean, you talk
at
about
least we banned the hip drop tackle that we don't even enforce.
Well, talk about a team we're playing next week. I mean, Tua. I mean, you could say my opinion is that it's malpractice that he's even playing. But that's a whole nother conversation. But then you look at like Josh Allen, was it last week that Josh Allen got smoked in the head, and they just kind of were like, get back out there. And I thought, how, is this allowed? So there's a lot of, there's a lot of inconsistency in the NFL that has, in my opinion, dropped the ball on a lot of these player injuries, and, the refs also sometimes make a lot of questions. But yeah, that I wanted to bring that up because there were people asking us to touch on that. I think you guys by now know how Jake and I feel. Like I said, I'm not, it is what, I didn't agree with it, but I wasn't surprised by it. I thought that, there was, I mean, the PI.
I hated this call because they're teaching corners to do that, to turn around and play the ball.
And it proves, and so let's talk about, we were going to talk about defense now anyways. Let's start with this. Yeah. What it proves is that corner is the toughest position to play in football, which I have said, the past few years. I really believe that is in today's day and age in the NFL. I mean, you can't do anything as a corner. It's very, very difficult. So it's already that hard. And then you get a call like this, which doesn't even it doesn't pass the smell test in any way. It just doesn't, there's no, there's a lot of these calls that are, you can kind of see maybe where you're like, well, it wasn't pass interference, but sure, maybe, we could see how it could be taken this way. This is one where it just didn't. It was awful. And, the broadcasters also were like, this is awful. Not that they always have it right either, but,
yeah, Jonathan Vilma did not have most of what he was saying right yesterday. What was it? He said Geno Smith with the blocking. Oh no, they're gonna get Byron Young on a low block call on Geno Smith. So here I was thinking they're taking away the pick six, and they're like, oh no, he just didn't know what he was saying.
It wasn't the best performance. But yeah, no. I thought that call. But Jake, so let's aside from that horrendous call, which I mean, again, there's not even anything we can say about it other than just laugh. It's just terrible. The secondary looked pretty good. I mean, they looked good. They had some bad moments. Okay, they had some bad moments. Jackson Smith-Njigba, legacy game. On our Rams defense's watch, but I liked him, to be fair. I've always liked him. I like him less now because he plays for a rival. But the Seahawks have this trend of drafting receivers that I really like. Him and then DK Metcalf, both on Seattle. I've always liked Tyler Lockett, even though he's been cooking us for however many years. He always seems to get one little jab in every time we play him. So they had some bad plays, but I thought overall, Jake, they held up, right? I mean, you see guys out there. I mean, Cameron Kinchins, let's start there. I think we've been critical of him. Most Rams fans have been critical of him. And it's silly to word it that way because he's a rookie. So it feels a little bit, just silly when you're like, well, he's, not looked good to start the season. He's a rookie. He should be allowed to have that grace. And to be honest, Cameron Kinchins has been relied upon maybe more than the Rams were even originally intending, right? With John Johnson's injury. So, again, we need to extend grace there a little bit. But we've been hard on him, and I think Rams fans have been hard on him too. He's had some not good moments to start the season, and I've seen up until yesterday people being pretty harsh on him, and maybe arguably rightfully so, on social media. So to see him make that play, that 103-yard pick six, which I have to admit, when I first saw him catch that, Jake, I was like, Neil, I was like, don't run it out. Like
He looked
my
like he was
first
going
instinct.
to, and then he's like, "Wait,
Yeah.
I have grass."
Yeah, he was like, I have grass and I have free will. What can I make happen here? But I saw it and I immediately was like, go down. Like, because it didn't look like immediately to me. I'll be honest, I didn't clock it that there was any room to really run. But he did, and he got the pick six, and I thought it was amazing. And I tweeted this out. I was like, you know what? I was like, our team really needed that. But I
Absolutely.
think he really needed that, and I think you could see that when he went to the bench, because again, he's been put, rightfully or wrongfully, I think, through the ringer a little bit this season, and for him to make that play in such a big game, I thought was huge. So I really, really liked the fact that it was him that did that. I don't know if you have any thoughts on Cameron Kinchins, but just when we talk about the secondary yesterday, I think it would be irresponsible to not start by talking about Cameron Kinchins.
Yeah, I don't think they win this game without him. I mean, it was impressive, and this is a guy that I've bet on. I've said, he doesn't look ready for this moment. He just doesn't look ready. And to be fair, a lot of what the Rams do is they draft these guys that are 24, 25, maybe even a 23-year-old, but they draft older rookies. So then they end up looking really good in their first year, and everyone's like, "Wow, they came out of nowhere. Why are they so good?" Well, Jared Verse is 23. He's seen a lot of football, both at UAlbany and both at FSU. So then you have Braden Fisk, who plays at Western Michigan for 4 years, and then his fifth year as a fifth-year senior, he's playing at FSU. So you have Kinchins, who's 21 years old, the youngest of the bunch, and he was already kind of far beyond what I expected. I mean, they're talking about him having a decent role. He had really good preseason, all of that. But then the NFL regular season happens, and he has a really costly penalty against the Lions. He's abysmal against the Cardinals. He has some bad moments, right? Well, this is the game that hopefully this can get him going. This is his confidence game. This was his get right game himself. Didn't miss a tackle, looked really good in coverage, had 2 picks. He just looked really confident. He didn't start. He came in after Cameron Curl got hurt. So huge day at the office for Cameron Kinchins. They probably don't win the game if he didn't, if he woke up sick and couldn't play, the Rams probably lose this game. That's the funny thing about the NFL. And I want to give a shout out to Bobby Brown the third as well, who you're nicknaming him now as Triple Threat. Because he said he liked that, so we'll go with that.
Threat.
Triple Threat. I mean, it almost looked identical to the Aaron Donald stuff of. I just saw it today. Marshawn Lynch. It was in St. Louis, and Marshawn Lynch got stuffed, and they went for it on 4th and short. Well, it's hard to remember this because you just think, oh, well, the Rams won. They threw a game-winning touchdown pass to Demarcus Robinson. You almost forget that Seattle was knocking on the door and we're about to call game. It's 4th and 1. How many times do you see you bring all the pressure up front and then they run to the side, and then I could just totally see Kenneth Walker running right through and not being touched, game over. But that's not what happened. They came to play. They did a great job. They run to the left side. They need 1 yard. Bobby Brown disengages and absolutely stuffs him. In addition to that, Omar Spates, the rest of the defense, steps up huge. Bobby Brown has been so good this year, and people do not talk about him. And the reason, this is the reason why people don't talk about Bobby Brown III is because you have, think about it, the conductor, Kobe Turner. You now have Braden Fisk. You have Byron Young, Jared Verse, Michael Hoyt looks like a baller. Bobby Brown was on the team last year. You had, of course, the conductor, and you had AD. This is what happens. You get overshadowed. But you know what? He's never once complained about that. He just goes and does his job. It's why I say he's today's version of Michael Brockers. You can't see Michael Brockers probably was never going to win an all pro. Bobby Brown might never win an all pro. But these guys are so important to the nucleus of a defensive front. You have guys that are just unselfish players, and he's a better athlete, in my opinion, than Michael Brockers. But these guys are unselfish. They're not afraid to take on doubles. They're so key and critical to just stopping the run. You know, if you take on double teams, you take on triple teams, what have you, now everybody else can eat. You might not get the stats, and he does not get the stats. He doesn't get the pressures because that doesn't show up in the stat sheet. When you're taking on a double team, there's no stat for that. People just see when Braden Fisk gets the sack, right? Or Darth Vader, we're calling him now, gets the sack, right? So I was just really impressed. I wanted to give him credit. Jalen McCullough has 4 interceptions, and he's played like 81 snaps for his career. So that's insane. I thought Akello Witherspoon was great. I know a lot of people were complaining. I don't know why. He gave up 40 yards. Like, he hasn't. I keep seeing that there's that rhetoric that he's bad. Kobe Durant struggled. Like, he really struggled. He gave up 93 yards. He was a big reason why Seattle was able to get things going with JSN. But Kobe Durant's been great all year. You know, this is just football. Some guys are going to bring it. Some guys are not. Quentin Lake did not have his best game of the season, but he did enough to help them win, right? That's just the way it is. But yeah, I still can't believe how quiet things are for Kobe Turner, though. Because Kobe Turner, everyone was talking about defensive rookie of the year last year, Alexis. Then Aaron Donald retires, and now it's his defense. Did you know Kobe Turner this time last year going into it, he had 13 pressures? You know what he has right now? He's got 30.
Yeah.
He's got 30 pressures. He had 7 in this game. I did not hear one mention of Kobe Turner. He had 7 pressures in this game. This is this team right now. I tweeted about it. This is the way it is. The Rams are that team that started out 1-4. They're 4-4 right now. 4-4 is not the best in the league, right? They don't even have a 30% chance of making the playoffs currently. But this has been an exciting season, has it not? There's been a lot to cheer about, especially the last 3 games. And it's why Cooper Kupp, who goes for 100 yards, on 11 catches, is that not the quietest 100-yard, 11-catch game you'll ever see? No one talked about it. No one talked about Cooper Kupp. No one talked about 7 pressure Kobe Turner. That's how you know things are going well. And by the way, Nick Hampton found himself on the field, and he made a huge play. Only had 3 snaps, and he had a huge bat. He was going to throw it over him. Nope. Nick Hampton knew, I'm only going to get 3. Well, maybe he didn't know that. He only had 3 snaps, and one of them was a tackle, one of them was a pressure, and one of the other 3, he had a batted pass. So it was an all hands on deck game. And, it's just a reminder that not just one guy is going to help you win. But then again, when you have Matthew Stafford throwing a ball like that, Demarcus Robinson coming up with it makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was, an all-around effort, from the defense. I think that really the defense kept us in the game, right? I mean, we talk about obviously the game-winning play, as you just mentioned, but if our defense did not step up yesterday, I mean, we would have lost. I mean, the offense really struggled, as we talked about earlier, for the majority of the game, and this defense came out and they they were on fire, and they had some bad plays, which we talked about earlier. Things broke down a few times there, but overall, I mean, it's so fun watching this defensive front. I mean, Jared Verse and Braden Fisk are fun to watch. Kobe Turner is fun to watch. And part of the reason I think Kobe gets overshadowed a little bit is because he's doing all of that work that ends up being cleaned up maybe by Braden Fisk, right?
Hmm.
You have all of these guys attacking up front from different angles, and you know, somebody's going to get to the quarterback. And just because, another guy's not getting there doesn't mean that he's not causing the pressure that leads, to the quarterback running into the arms of the other guy. So you kind of have this multifaceted group up front that's really getting fun to watch. And as we talked about last episode, they're putting the tackling together, right? Because a lot of these guys, these rookies, struggled early on in the season to close out tackles, and we were like, they're going to get there. They're getting the pressures. There's just one more step that they got to nail down, and they are starting to do it. And like I said, I was really hoping that I was going to hit that Jared Verse 2-sack pick, and I almost did. But he got the one. Braden
Yeah.
Fisk with a hat trick. Tyler Davis, another rookie, coming in
He looks very good.
and getting a sack. So, the Rams have a really good defensive front that I think is really underrated. And I think that they're only going to get better with time. These guys are young, they're still building chemistry. And I think that, we're going to see as weeks go on, this is going to be a real problem. I mean, this is not a 2 or 3 guy operation. This is really more like a 5 guy operation, where they have the depth to just really. And then not only that, right, in the interior, you've got Byron Young and Jared Verse, on the outside, and then I'd like to see eventually Brennan Jackson, get in there, Nick Hampton
Yeah.
more playing times on the edge. You're gonna see. I think people are gonna to really like what they see out of this Rams defensive front. But Jake, in closing, as we close out this episode, uh, I was really obviously, listen, it was a stressful game. Okay, it was not the best game that the Rams have played this season. I think they're a lot better than they put out yesterday. I thought that they did, though, show some moments where they played really, really well. I mean, we got the game to overtime
Hmm.
and we won. And that's what matters, right? We talk about these wins that, because the Rams started the season so poorly, you now have to get the W. In most of these games, I mean, you're 4-4, not the best record, not the worst record. Your saving grace right now is the fact that the NFC West is so close, and that, we're all kind of, mirroring each other, and we're all in the same spot. And now it's up to the Rams to separate, right? And beating a division rival like the Seahawks is a good step in order to do that. So in these coming weeks, um, I hope that the Rams keep this positive momentum going. And, we get to do it in prime time. Next episode that we do, we'll be talking about a Monday Night Football matchup against the Dolphins, which we'll see. We'll see how that goes. The Dolphins are an interesting team this year.
Yeah, and we'll see if maybe the Rams make a move tomorrow.
Yes, trade deadline tomorrow.
It sounds like Trey White would be most likely to be gone, which, good for him. He deserves a chance to go and play for another team if he's not going to be utilized here. It's a bummer, but I do think they had a plan for him and it went south the way most plans in the NFL go. Darius Williams goes down with an injury, Darian Kendrick, and now all of a sudden you're going to wait until November to use him? No, just kidding. He has to start week 1. I think it's unfortunate, but that's also the NFL. I don't think they screwed him. I don't think they really had much of a choice. So that's how that's happened. But no, I this is a great win. And once again, the defense just showing up. 20 points, against the Vikings that they allowed. They allow 15, against the Raiders. And then you allow 20 again against Seattle. I'm really, really liking what I'm seeing on the defense. Yeah, they're going to give up a big play here and there. They're a very, very young defense. But I think sooner or later, the question isn't going to be anything about how good they can be or whatever. The question is going to be, what could it take to get Aaron Donald to come back and make a run with this team? Because I'll tell you right now, in closing, Dan Orlovsky on First Take said, this Rams team, if they stay healthy, they can win it all. He's not wrong. This team can win it all. Alexis, you and I both were very high on this team. I think we both had them winning the Super Bowl this year going into the season. Just because things went south They never went fully south. Let's keep that in mind. None of these injuries were season ending. That was the beauty of it. And what it allowed you to do is find out, okay, so these guys can actually play. If say things go really well and it's like 2018 and they're like 8-0 or whatever, do you think Jalen McCullough, do you think anybody would know who that is? He's not playing, right? He's not. Guys like that are not playing. Whittington isn't playing. You look at the secondary further, like they're probably making a big move in probably because they don't believe they have anybody. But because push came to shove, Jordan Whittington is another one. Because push came to shove, these guys were forced to grow up quicker. These guys were needed quicker. This same thing worked in their favor in a big way last year with Puka Nacua. When Cooper Kupp went down, I said, this sucks, but the good news is it's not season ending. And a decent size news is the fact that you have Tutu Atwell and Puka Nacua now that are going to get more reps and more opportunities. And sure enough, Puka Nacua emerged as a superstar in this league. So, it's not always bad. You can, turn water into wine sometimes. I think this coaching staff has done a really nice job and they deserve credit. And all of a sudden, the Rams have won 3 straight. They got the Patriots after the Dolphins. Then they got the Eagles. The Saints just became a little bit of an easier game. I think it's fair to say they've lost 7 straight. Then they gotta prove it. They're going to be playing the Bills, so they never play well. They have the 49ers again. You might have to sweep the 49ers as much as that sucks. You might have to sweep them to win the division. Then you have Seattle. You finish the season with the Cardinals in Seattle. Both of those games, there's no time set. So both of those games could be prime time. There's a lot. But I do think right now, the trend, the direction the Rams are going in, they're becoming that team no one wants to play. Because it does not matter that this game was close. It doesn't matter that they don't blow teams out. It doesn't matter that 2 weeks ago, they only beat the Raiders 20-15. All that matters is now they're getting these wins. They're turning these situations early on in the year that they would lose every single time, and now they're winning them. These close games, they're winning them, they're finishing them. And as this happens, this young defense is getting hotter and hotter and hotter. And they have a lot. They're playing just with their hair on fire. And I just think there's a different mentality right now. And I'm just saying right now, I think when it's all said and done, the Rams are going to have to play the Lions again, probably in the NFC title game to get over the hump. And I think they're going to do it. I think that's what it's staring down as. The Lions, of course, don't have Aiden Hutchinson. They'll probably replace him at the deadline, but replacing Aiden Hutchinson is better. It's easier said than done. And let's not forget, started week 1. This team lost in overtime to what everybody's calling the best team in the league in the Lions with A.J. Arcuri at left tackle, with no Puka Nacua, with no Steve Avila finishing the game. Jonah Jackson, right? Kevin Dotson was in a walking boot after the game. Havenstein was banged up. A lot of injuries. This thing isn't written yet, but I feel really good about this team as long as they stay healthy. And staying healthy in the NFL is not as simple as just saying it. But if they have just some normalcy and they get some health, they get their guys back on the offensive line, they play the full season with their starting quarterback, and some of these guys can just stay healthy, I think the Rams are as dangerous as any team in the league.
Love to hear it. I think momentum is certainly on their side. I think there's a lot to feel good about right now. Like I said, I think yesterday we got the win. It wasn't the prettiest win, but I think that the momentum is going the right direction for the Rams, and I feel good heading into Monday Night Football. But like you said, the Rams have to prove it. They have to come out the rest of the season. They have to win. We're gonna have some tough games. I mean, the Eagles, the Bills, some of these teams are really good.
Yeah.
The Eagles are a little up and down, but
Yeah, they haven't played
overall,
anybody.
yeah, I mean, the Rams are going to have to show us and show the league that they can compete. And I think that they will. But it's gonna really make a difference too as well. I think when we get some of these guys in our offensive line back, for sure. And we can get a full game with Cup, Nakua, and Kyron Williams all playing. I mean, we deserve it. We deserve a game where we can see all those guys on the field together for a full game. It feels like it's been so long since that's happened. Um, other than obviously Thursday Night Football against the Vikings, but I didn't get to watch that game live like everybody else did. I was at a wedding rehearsal. So, um, yeah, but guys, I think that's going to do it for us. Hopefully we, answered any questions you had about this matchup against the Seahawks. Thank you all for tuning in. It's live. We have 700 people right now watching across all platforms, which is very, very cool for a Monday night. So we appreciate that. Shout out to everybody who also felt like years were taken off their life yesterday, with that very stressful game going into overtime. Like I mentioned earlier, it was not for the faint of heart. I was physically very stressed out. But I'm going to ride this win through the week, and we will be back Friday night to preview the Rams Monday night matchup. Or you know what? It might be Thursday. Jake, I have to talk to you about that.
Okay.
It might be Thursday night. We'll tweet out. I actually don't know if I can do Friday this week, but we will be back to preview the Rams matchup against the Dolphins, and they are in prime time for anybody who didn't know. This upcoming week, Monday Night Football. As always, guys, if you like what you hear, you can follow us on social media at Downtown Rams. You can follow me on Twitter at the Alexis Craft. You can follow Jake at JK Bogan. And like I said, we'll be back later this week to preview our Monday Night Football matchup against the Miami Dolphins. But until then, guys, as always, stay safe, take care, and go Rams.